Real mobsters, real history. Welcome to the Underworld. The 18th of August 1948. Two men walk into a gleaming menswear shop on the Sunset Strip carrying shotguns. They have come to erase the undisputed king of the Los Angeles underworld. They slaughter his men. They spray the store with lead, but the target survives. Why? Because seconds before the door swung open, the king stepped into the bathroom to wash his hands. A psychological compulsion he simply could not control. Hollywood made a movie about this man. You might have seen it, Gangster Squad. They showed you a snarling comic book villain defeated by heroic cops in blazing street shootouts. But Hollywood lied. They gave you a fairy tale. This is the true story of Mickey Cohen, a ruthless mobster crippled by severe psychological paranoia. A man who blackmailed Hollywood royalty, survived 11 Mafia assassination attempts, and was ultimately destroyed by the one enemy he never saw coming. An enemy that did not carry a Tommy gun. They carried a calculator. To understand how a man survives a hurricane of bullets, you have to start in the gutter. Meyer Harris Cohen was born in New York City in 1913. His father died when he was a toddler. His mother packed up the family and fled west, settling in Boyle Heights, the gritty, working-class immigrant heart of East Los Angeles. Mickey had no time for childhood. By 8 years old, he was a newsboy, hustling papers on the corner and pocketing the extra coins. By 9, he was thrown into reform school for petty theft. School never took. For his entire life, Mickey Cohen could barely read or write. It was a humiliating secret he guarded just as fiercely as his money. But he did not need to read. He only needed to know how to hit. At 15, he left for Cleveland to train as a professional featherweight boxer. He fought under the name Irish Mickey Cohen. He was vicious, relentless, and completely unafraid of pain. But in 1931, a future world champion knocked him out cold in the first round. The record was clear. Mickey had heart, but he lacked the elite talent to become a true champion. So he took his fists out of the ring and brought them to the streets. It paid much better. He drifted to Chicago, the dying days of Prohibition. Mickey started working the rackets, running illegal card games and dice joints for men directly connected to Al Capone. He was completely reckless. He started sticking up rival gambling dens. Robbing protected mob games is usually how ambitious young men end up floating face down in a river. But for Mickey, it earned him a reputation. He was crazy. He was fearless. And to the syndicate, he was highly useful. In 1937, the Eastern mob bosses sent him back west. His assignment was Los Angeles. His new boss was syndicate royalty, Bugsy Siegel, movie star handsome, charming over an expensive dinner, and absolutely homicidal by dessert. The underworld called him Bugsy, but men were terrified to ever say that word to his face. Siegel was building a gambling empire on the coast, and he needed muscle with brains. The little boxer from Boyle Heights became his ultimate attack dog. Mickey knocked over rival bookies. He shattered jaws. He collected the debts. He learned the exact anatomy of the Los Angeles rackets from the inside out. But here is the dark, fascinating truth that Hollywood completely ignored. Mickey Cohen was not just a mindless street thug. He was a deeply tormented psychological prisoner. Mickey suffered from severe obsessive compulsive disorder. He was a radical germaphobe. The man who willingly swam in the filthiest, bloodiest underworld in America was utterly terrified of bacteria. He washed his hands dozens of times a day, scrubbing them with harsh soap until the skin literally cracked and bled. He refused to touch doorknobs. He would take a shower for an hour, use a fresh towel once, and immediately throw it in the trash. He covered his body in baby powder. He was a walking contradiction, a killer obsessed with remaining perfectly spotless. Mickey was the perfect weapon for a master like Bugsy Siegel, but apprenticeships in the Mafia rarely end with a gold watch. On the night of the 20th of June, 1947, Bugsy Siegel was sitting on a sofa in Beverly Hills, reading the Los Angeles Times. Outside, in the darkness, a sniper raised a military carbine. The glass shattered. The bullets tore through Siegel's head. One round blew his left eye completely out of his skull and sent it flying across the living room. The king was dead. Mickey Cohen did not hesitate. He did not run. He stepped right over his mentor's bloody memory and violently seized control of Siegel's entire gambling empire. The illiterate newsboy was now the undisputed king of the fastest-growing city in America. But taking a throne is easy. Surviving the men who think it belongs to you, that is a completely different story. Mickey Cohen did not just inherit a few underground casinos. He inherited the central nervous system of the West Coast underworld, the race wire. In the 1940s, illegal betting was the heartbeat of organized crime. Every bookmaker in America needed race results within seconds. If a gambler found out a horse won before the bookie did, they could place a massive bet on a race that was already over. The wire was a monopoly on time itself. Control the wire, and every single bookmaker in the city either pays your subscription fee or they go completely blind. After Bugsy Siegel was murdered, the entire betting world of Southern California answered to Mickey. His enforcers walked the streets every week, collecting a mandatory tax from hundreds of illegal operations. It was a massive, violent extortion machine running right out in the open, and it generated absolute rivers of untraceable cash. To launder that cash, Mickey built a fortress on the Sunset Strip and disguised it as a clothing store. It was located at 8804 Sunset Boulevard. Downstairs, it was a gleaming haberdashery, a high-end menswear shop, a jewelry counter, and an immaculate tailor. Mickey paraded around the showroom floor playing the polite shopkeeper. He wore perfectly tailored suits that cost over $300 apiece. He kept over 200 of them in his closets, hung neatly next to what he casually referred to as a well-equipped arsenal. But the ground floor was just theater. Upstairs was the real business. Federal investigators later described the layout with total disbelief. The second floor sat behind a reinforced, bulletproof steel door. It was guarded by heavily armed men. It featured a walk-in bank vault. And the clothing store downstairs somehow registered a purely laughable amount of actual retail sales. But illegal gambling and fake suits were just the surface. Here is the massive, sinister detail that the Hollywood movie conveniently erased. Mickey Cohen was running a highly sophisticated, absolutely ruthless extortion ring targeting the biggest movie stars on the planet. The golden age of Hollywood was built entirely on image. The major studios controlled their actors with strict morality clauses. If an A-list star was caught in a scandal, their career was instantly terminated. Mickey understood this leverage perfectly. He didn't just want the actors' money at his card tables. He wanted their darkest secrets. Mickey quietly funded and controlled a sprawling network of private investigators, high-end prostitutes, and corrupt police officers. He wired hotel rooms across the city. He recorded private conversations. He hunted for the hidden, ruinous vices of Hollywood royalty. If a studio executive racked up a massive underground gambling debt, Mickey owned him. If a famous leading man was caught in a hotel room with a prostitute, Mickey bought the police report directly from the arresting officers. He buried the paperwork, and then he sent the actor the bill. A massive, ongoing, terrifying price for silence. The rumors from that era still echo through Los Angeles today. It is widely reported that Mickey possessed secret, highly compromising audio recordings of Marilyn Monroe. He used these tapes, and dozens of others just like them, to put a suffocating squeeze on the major movie studios. He was the ultimate shadow producer. He did not write the scripts. He did not direct the films. He just held the actors hostage. And this incredible power fed his ultimate psychological obsession, fame. Traditional mafia bosses like Al Capone, Lucky Luciano, or Meyer Lansky operated in the dark. They hated the camera. They wanted to remain completely invisible. Mickey Cohen worshipped the spotlight. He wanted to be a celebrity just as badly as the actors he was blackmailing. He was a ruthless mobster who actually hired his own personal public relations agent. He threw massive, lavish parties. He tipped restaurant waiters with $100 bills like he was trying to burn the evidence. He eagerly posed for newspaper photographers, showing off his expensive suits, his pristine manicures, and his pet bulldogs. He intentionally cultivated a public brand. He wanted the world to see him as the lovable, tough guy king of the Sunset Strip. Mickey was practically a movie star. He was bathing in cash, drowning in bespoke suits, and openly laughing at the law. But while he was busy posing for the cameras and counting his extortion money, the old-school Sicilian Mafia was watching from the shadows. Jack Dragna was the traditional boss of the Los Angeles crime family, a man of the old country, a man who believed in respect, tradition, and absolute silence. Dragna had watched the Eastern Syndicate treat him like a doorman in his own city for years. And now this loudmouth, camera-loving Jewish ex-boxer was sitting on the throne that rightfully belonged to the Italians. Dragna decided he had seen enough. He didn't want to sit down. He didn't want a conversation. He wanted a corpse. Jack Dragna did not declare war with a warning. He declared it with a shotgun. What followed became known in the newspapers as the Battle of the Sunset Strip. It was a brutal, chaotic slaughter. Dragna threw everything the Mafia had at Mickey Cohen, and he missed. 11 times. The 18th of August, 1948. The haberdashery at 8,804 Sunset. Hitmen kick open the front door of the shop. They level their shotguns and pull the triggers. Hooky Rothman, one of Mickey's most loyal enforcers, is blown back into the display cases, dead among the silk ties. 2 other men are left bleeding on the polished floor. And Mickey, he is completely untouched, because just seconds before the glass shattered, his severe psychological disorder kicked in. He had stepped into the private washroom to violently scrub his hands with soap and hot water. His germaphobia saved his life. But Dragna did not stop. The next summer, June 1949, gunfire finds Nettie Herbert, the man who stepped into dead Hucky Rothman's shoes. He survives the ambush outside his own home. 1 month later, the 20th of July, 1949, 2 in the morning, Mickey walks out of Sherry's restaurant on the Strip. He is surrounded by his entourage. Suddenly, a wall of shotgun fire erupts from across the dark street. The bullets rip through the crowd. Nettie Herbert goes down again. This time, he dies. A newspaper columnist standing nearby is grazed. A young woman is wounded. Mickey takes a slug right in the shoulder. He bleeds, but he lives. But the most incredible detail of that shooting is the man who took a bullet to the stomach. His name was Harry Cooper. He was a state agent. He was officially assigned by the Attorney General of California to protect Mickey Cohen. Sit with that sentence. The state of California was using taxpayer money to provide armed government bodyguards for a ruthless mob boss, and the guard got shot. That was the absolute dizzying height of Mickey's power and manipulation. He had the law taking bullets for him. The war kept eating his crew and draining his cash. In August, 2 of his top lieutenants simply vanished into thin air. Frank Nicoli and Dave O'Goole. No bodies, no witnesses, just gone. Their disappearance cost Mickey $75,000 in forfeited bail bonds. Dragna realized bullets and kidnappings were not working fast enough, so he switched to high explosives. The 6th of February, 1950. The middle of the night, Mickey is sleeping in his sprawling, heavily fortified home on Moreno Avenue in Brentwood. A massive dynamite bomb detonates right under the house. The blast is deafening. It completely wrecks part of the structure. It shatters glass for blocks, and out of the smoking, twisted wreckage, Mickey and his wife crawl out onto the front lawn, completely unhurt. Blind luck and the thick structural layout of the house had deflected the lethal force of the blast right past them. Shotguns, rifles, bombs, disappearing bodyguards. By the early 1950s, the attempts on his life stacked up to a reported total of 11. Every single one of them failed. Mickey showered for an hour at a time. He bought more custom suits. He added floodlights and alarms to his house. He tipped the waiters. He kept smiling for the cameras. The film Gangster Squad compresses this entire war into a few loud, fictionalized months. They show the cops winning the shootouts. But the real war burned for years, and the Mafia lost it. Jack Dragna failed. The Underworld simply could not kill Mickey Cohen. The man was completely immortal against lead and dynamite. But while Dragna was reloading his shotguns and burying his mistakes, a completely different squad of men was watching from a distance. They realized that Dragna was going about this all wrong. To kill a modern king, you do not aim for his chest. You aim for his secrets. In 1946, the Los Angeles Police Department quietly formed a unit that existed on absolutely no official organizational chart. 8 men, 2 battered Ford sedans, no office. They called themselves the Gangster Squad. If you watched the Hollywood movie, you saw these men charging through crowded hotel lobbies with Tommy guns, shooting the city to pieces in a blaze of cinematic glory. Erase that image from your mind. The real Gangster Squad did not win the war with bullets. They knew that shooting at Mickey Cohen was a total waste of time. Jack Dragna had already proven that. The squad's deadliest weapon was a microphone. Mickey was deeply paranoid. He survived 11 assassination attempts because he was cautious. He built a fortress in Brentwood with alarms, floodlights, and armed guards. He checked his cars for bombs. He checked his bulletproof doors. But he was blinded by his own vanity. He loved his luxury, and he loved his comfort. The gangster squad found their way in through a television set. The squad's electronics expert managed to plant a covert listening device deep inside a brand new television, delivered right into Mickey's living room. It was a Trojan horse wrapped in wood veneer and glass. For years, the king of the Los Angeles underworld lived with a wire in his castle. Every conversation, every threat, every bribe. The talk inside the fortress drifted right out over the airwaves to cops sitting in dark, parked cars, wearing headphones. They listened to his psychological unraveling. They listened to his extreme germaphobic meltdowns. But most importantly, they listened to him talk about his money. The LAPD knew they had a massive problem. They could not put Mickey away for violence. Every time a rival ended up dead on a restaurant floor, the witnesses mysteriously forgot what they saw. When Mickey's own enforcers took the fall for a hit, the convictions were magically overturned on appeal. Mickey kept his hands clean. He paid the right lawyers. He bribed the right judges. No jury in California ever convicted Mickey Cohen of a single violent crime. The gangster squad realized a cold, hard truth. You cannot beat a modern mafia boss in a courtroom using dead bodies. You have to use ledgers. The cops took the wiretap transcripts. They took the logs of his massive spending. They gathered the endless receipts of a lavish lifestyle he could not legally afford. And they quietly handed them over to the most terrifying, relentless organization in the United States government, the Internal Revenue Service. They handed Mickey to the exact same breed of quiet men who had taken down his idol, Al Capone. In November 1950, the federal government dropped a net over the Sunset Strip. The famous Kefauver Crime Committee dragged Mickey to Washington. They put him under oath in front of a national television audience. They put a spotlight on the illiterate newsboy and demanded he explain his wealth. Mickey sat in the chair and lied with a perfectly straight face. He claimed he lived entirely on borrowed cash, $300,000 in friendly loans from generous pals whose names he simply could not remember. The country watched the broadcast and laughed. The revenue men did not laugh. They started doing the arithmetic. The feds did not care about the blood on his hands. They only cared about the ink on his ledgers. In 1951, the man who laughed at Mafia hitmen, the man who walked through shotgun ambushes and dynamite blasts, was suddenly paralyzed. He was trapped by a group of quiet accountants in cheap suits, and the punishment they were preparing was going to be far worse than a bullet. In June 1951, a federal jury found Mickey Cohen guilty of evading taxes on roughly $156,000 of income. The man 11 Mafia hit squads could not touch was quietly carried off to federal prison by accountants. He served his time and walked out in October 1955. And when he returned to Los Angeles, he entered the strangest, most surreal chapter of his entire life. He came home a celebrity. He did not hide in the shadows. He ran floral shops. He ran paint stores. He drove an ice cream van down San Vicente Boulevard in Brentwood. One of the most feared, ruthless men in California was suddenly handing out ice cream cones to children on the sidewalk. He went on live national television with Mike Wallace in 1957. He publicly insulted the chief of the LAPD so recklessly that the network had to pay tens of thousands of dollars just to settle the lawsuits. He struck up a highly publicized friendship with the famous evangelist Billy Graham. Mickey told the press he was very high on the Christian way of life. He let the entire country wonder whether the vicious gangster had finally found God. The preacher got his headlines. Mickey got his cover. Nobody actually got a conversion. Because behind the ice cream van and the television interviews, Mickey was still Mickey, and the federal government was still watching. While Mickey played the born-again celebrity, federal agents were building a second tax case, and this one was built like an absolute fortress. The feds traced the borrowed money that never got repaid. They audited the front businesses that never sold a single product. They tracked a lavish, explosive lifestyle that no ice cream vendor could ever explain. The second hammer fell in 1961. A parade of witnesses walked a jury through years of his spending. Guilty again. This time, the judge did not show mercy. He handed down a 15-year sentence. It was reported at the time as the heaviest federal tax sentence in American history. And they did not send him somewhere gentle. They sent him to the Rock, Alcatraz, inmate number 1,518. doing his time on an isolated island built specifically for men exactly like him. And it was inside the concrete walls of Alcatraz that Mickey Cohen finally met the violence he had been dodging his entire life. The 14th of August, 1963. Mickey is sitting in the prison day room, watching television. He is entirely relaxed. He does not see the inmate coming up behind him. He does not see the heavy length of iron pipe cutting through the air. The first blow violently caves in the back of his skull. The room immediately becomes noise and blood. Guards rush in. The beating takes only seconds, but the damage is catastrophic. Surgeons work on him for hours. They manage to save his life, but they cannot save his legs. The attack leaves him partially paralyzed. He spends years relearning how to stand, how to walk with a cane, how to simply hold a fork. What 11 heavily armed Mafia hitmen could not do on the streets of Los Angeles, one lone inmate with an iron pipe accomplished inside a federal penitentiary. Mickey Cohen survived the pipe, just like he survived the shotguns. He even did the most Mickey Cohen thing imaginable. He sued the United States government for failing to protect him inside its own prison, and he won. He was awarded $110,000. But the final joke was on him, because when the smoke cleared and the king returned to his city, he realized a terrifying truth about power. The IRS seized his lawsuit money almost instantly. They took the cash to pay off his massive back taxes. Even his rare victories only paid his enemies. In January 1972, the federal government finally opened the gates. They let him go. He walked out of prison a slow, careful man, leaning heavily on a cane. He stepped out into a city that no longer belonged to him. 2 decades had passed since his first tax conviction. It was a lifetime away from the bloody streets of Boyle Heights. The war was over, and the battlefield was entirely empty. Look at what happened to the men who hunted him. Jack Dragna, the ruthless mafia boss who ordered the shotguns and the dynamite, never got his city back. He died of a massive heart attack in a cheap Hollywood motel room. Bugsy Siegel got a closed casket and a permanent legend in Las Vegas. The loyal enforcers, the men who took the bullets meant for Mickey, got early graves. And the real men of the gangster squad simply grew old in absolute silence. And Mickey, the untouchable king of the Sunset Strip, was reduced to a ghost. He spent his final years touring the television talk show circuit of the 1970s. He sat under the bright studio lights, gripping his cane, playing the role of an elder statesman from a vanished underworld. He told his sanitized stories to studio audiences who looked at him like an exhibit in a museum. He had craved fame his entire life. He finally had it. But he had zero power. He was a relic, a mascot of a bygone era. On the 29th of July, 1976, Mickey Cohen went to sleep in his own bed. He never woke up. Stomach cancer took him quietly in the night. He was 62 years old, the most shot-at man in America. The gangster who survived 11 mob hits and a federal prison assassination was never once killed by a bullet. Which brings us to the final verdict on the Hollywood fantasy. The film Gangster Squad ends with Mickey Cohen beaten to a pulp in a dramatic fistfight by a heroic cop. The movie shows him locked away in a dark cell for murdering one of his own men. Hollywood gave you justice, delivered as a physical punch. They gave you a blazing shootout because it feels satisfying. But history is far more brutal. History delivers justice as an audit. The real Mickey Cohen was never convicted of a single violent crime. He was not taken down by brave cops with Tommy guns. He was erased by paperwork, the exact same weapon that destroyed the Capone he worshipped. Hollywood lied to you because the absolute truth is far too cold for a summer blockbuster. Los Angeles never figured out how to kill Mickey Cohen. The Mafia could not shoot him. The police could not hang him. They could only build him, wiretap his television, and let the accountants slowly suffocate him. The modern gangster is not defeated by heroes. He is audited into oblivion.